Welcome to the final episode of Strategic Isomorphism, uncovering parallel logics of power across organizations. I'm Kaede, and if you've been with us for this entire journey, you've witnessed a fascinating exploration of how diverse organizations, from criminal syndicates to tech giants, independently develop strikingly similar strategies to address universal challenges. Today, we're stepping back to synthesize our findings and examine the broader implications of strategic isomorphism. Throughout our series, we've dissected parallel structures in control architecture, economic leverage tactics, alliance formation, and internal governance. We've seen how the Yakuza, state bureaucracies, political administrations, and Silicon Valley startups all grapple with remarkably similar problems, often arriving at convergent solutions despite their radically different contexts. As we wrap up our exploration, we'll tackle the big questions. Why does this convergence occur? What drives organizations to adopt similar practices across such diverse settings? And perhaps most crucially, how can leaders navigate the tension between beneficial conformity and necessary innovation? With the upcoming 2025 Turkish Academy of Management Conference focusing on organizational resilience in turbulent times, our discussion couldn't be more timely. We'll examine how organizations can establish legitimacy through isomorphic practices while maintaining the adaptive capacity needed to thrive in rapidly changing environments. So let's dive in and unpack the patterns, pressures, and interpretive challenges of strategic isomorphism. Our journey through organizational landscapes has revealed striking evidence of convergent strategic behavior across wildly different contexts. Let's recap the key parallels we've uncovered. In control structures, we saw how hierarchy and networks emerge as complementary solutions, whether you're running a crime syndicate or a tech startup. The Yakuza's Oyabunkaban structure mirrors corporate reporting lines, while informal advisors in political kitchen cabinets serve the same function as tech company team-building exercises, creating trust networks that supplement formal authority. Economic leverage tactics showed remarkable consistency, with coercion and resource acquisition strategies appearing across contexts. The US-China trade war escalation from 2018 to 2025 provides a perfect example, with tariffs reaching an unprecedented 125%, essentially the nation-state version of a protection racket, just with more press conferences and global economic implications. Alliance formation, driven by capability enhancement and risk management, emerged consistently, whether we were examining criminal partnerships, state military coalitions, or corporate joint ventures. The recent US-Japan-South Korea Semiconductor Alliance, formed specifically to counter China's growing influence, demonstrates how even geopolitical rivalries can be set aside when facing a common strategic challenge. Governance mechanisms converged around norm setting and dispute resolution, with parallel systems for establishing rules and handling violations. The emergence of ESG, environmental, social, governance, reporting as a normative force across industries, by 2025 shows how even seemingly distinct sectors can adopt nearly identical governance practices under institutional pressures. Perhaps most intriguingly, digital transformation hasn't eliminated these isomorphic tendencies, but rather reinvented them through technological means. Indonesia's Ministry of National Development Planning's IDWSO implementation demonstrates how public sector digital transformation often mimics private sector approaches, despite the distinct challenges of government contexts. These cross-context patterns reveal that whether you're examining a rural municipality's digital adoption or a multinational corporation's global strategy, similar underlying logics drive organizational behavior. The evidence is clear. Strategic isomorphism isn't just an academic curiosity, but a powerful force shaping how organizations across sectors navigate common challenges. To understand why strategic isomorphism occurs so consistently, we need to examine the theoretical frameworks that explain this convergence. Institutional theory, as developed by DiMaggio and Powell, offers three key mechanisms. Coercive isomorphism, where regulatory requirements drive similar structures across organizations. We've seen this in action with the rapid adoption of ESG reporting frameworks across industries. Mimetic isomorphism, where uncertainty leads organizations to copy apparently successful models. The pandemic-driven shift to remote work perfectly exemplifies this, with organizations rapidly adopting similar digital monitoring tools regardless of their effectiveness. Normative isomorphism, where professional standards create convergence across different contexts. The standardization of sustainability assurance practices by 2025 demonstrates how quickly new norms can spread across diverse industries. Resource dependence theory helps explain why organizations facing similar resource constraints often develop parallel strategies. Whether it's criminal organizations competing for territory or tech companies vying for user attention, the need to secure critical resources drives convergent behaviors. The concept of universal organizational problems suggests that fundamental challenges of coordination, control, and survival create similar pressures across contexts. This explains why we see hierarchical structures emerging in contexts as diverse as government bureaucracies and criminal syndicates. Game theory provides insight into why strategic interactions often follow similar logic regardless of the players involved. Whether it's nations engaging in trade negotiations or corporations forming alliances, the underlying strategic calculations remain remarkably consistent. However, it's crucial to consider the concept of contextual embeddedness. As research on cross-border knowledge transfer has shown, practice effectiveness can vary significantly across cultural and organizational settings. This explains why some isomorphic tendencies may lead to suboptimal outcomes when practices are adopted without careful adaptation to local contexts. Examples abound in contemporary organizational landscapes. Digital adoption pressures have created remarkably similar transformation strategies across sectors. Academic institutions demonstrate isomorphic behaviors in their competition for limited funding resources. And the trend towards green innovation has driven organizations across industries to adopt similar sustainability practices, often more for legitimacy than proven effectiveness. Understanding these theoretical drivers helps explain why organizations, despite their surface-level differences, often converge on similar strategic approaches. It's not just imitation, but a complex interplay of institutional pressures, resource needs, and universal challenges that shape organizational behavior across contexts. As we approach the 2025 Turkish Academy of Management Conference, focusing on organizational resilience, it's crucial to examine how organizations can navigate isomorphic pressures while maintaining the adaptability needed in turbulent environments. Williams and colleagues' 2017 framework provides valuable insight, highlighting the delicate balance organizations must strike between isomorphic legitimacy and adaptive capacity. In other words, how can organizations look enough like their peers to be taken seriously while remaining distinct enough to innovate and adapt? TISA's dynamic capabilities approach offers a potential answer, emphasizing the importance of sensing environmental changes, seizing opportunities, and reconfiguring resources to maintain competitive advantage. This suggests that while isomorphic tendencies might drive surface-level similarities, organizations can differentiate themselves through superior execution of these dynamic capabilities. Kim et al.'s 2024 Integrated Resilience Model builds on these ideas, proposing a multi-level approach to organizational responses in turbulent environments. Their research suggests that resilient organizations demonstrate isomorphic tendencies at the macro level while maintaining diverse microlevel practices that enable rapid adaptation. This brings us to the innovation paradox. Isomorphism can both enable and constrain innovation. Standardization can provide a foundation for creativity by establishing common languages and practices. However, excessive conformity can stifle the novel thinking needed for breakthrough innovations. Organizations must carefully navigate this tension, knowing when to conform and when to deviate. Understanding the roles different actors play in institutional change is crucial. Hindering actors, often constrained by resources or cultural factors, may resist change and reinforce isomorphic pressures. Enabling actors, such as professional networks and associations, facilitate knowledge sharing that can either promote or challenge isomorphic tendencies. Driving actors, typically governments and regulators, exert coercive pressures that can accelerate isomorphic adoption of practices. Global perspectives reveal fascinating variations in how isomorphic pressures manifest across cultures. For instance, Indonesia's public sector digital transformation efforts demonstrate how global best practices are adapted to local cultural contexts, resulting in hybrid approaches that balance international standards with local needs. Finally, the concept of contextual embeddedness reminds us that the meaning and functional relationships of isomorphic behaviors can vary significantly based on situational factors. What works in one context may fail spectacularly in another, despite surface-level similarities. As organizations strive for resilience in increasingly turbulent environments, understanding these dynamics becomes crucial. Leaders must develop the wisdom to discern when isomorphic conformity provides legitimacy and efficiency, and when deviation is necessary for innovation and adaptation. In essence, strategic isomorphism isn't about blindly copying others, but about intelligently navigating institutional pressures while maintaining the distinctive capabilities needed for long-term success. Digital transformation has emerged as a powerful accelerator of strategic isomorphism, enabling practices to spread across organizational boundaries at unprecedented speed. It's like watching organizational evolution shift from geological to internet time. Changes that once took decades now occur in months, as digital tools enable rapid mimicry across contexts. Platform standardization through cloud services has created remarkable convergence in IT architectures. Whether you're a government agency, a corporation, or a nonprofit, chances are you're running on Oz, Azure, or Google Cloud, with increasingly similar application stacks and development practices. Algorithmic governance represents a particularly fascinating example of digital isomorphism, with similar AI and machine learning applications emerging across wildly different sectors. From content moderation algorithms on social platforms, to fraud detection systems in financial services, to risk assessment tools in criminal justice, we see strikingly similar technical approaches applied to fundamentally different problems, essentially digitizing decision-making through identical mechanisms despite different contexts. Cross-sector AI ethics frameworks show 89% similarity despite profound context differences, essentially proving that even our attempts to govern new technologies follow isomorphic patterns. Digital workspace isomorphism has accelerated dramatically since the pandemic, with remote work tools standardizing practices across previously distinct organizational cultures. Whether you're a government employee, a corporate worker, or a nonprofit staff member, you're likely using the same video conferencing platforms, project management tools, and collaboration software, creating convergent digital work practices that transcend traditional organizational boundaries. It's like watching different species suddenly adopt identical communication patterns because they all started using the same digital pheromones. Cross-border knowledge transfer has been revolutionized by digital channels, enabling practice sharing at global scale with minimal friction. Ideas, frameworks, and methodologies now spread across organizational and national boundaries at the speed of a viral LinkedIn post, creating rapid convergence around practices that appear successful, often before their effectiveness can be properly evaluated in different contexts. It's organizational meme culture driving strategic decisions, with practices spreading based on their shareability rather than their proven effectiveness. Implementation challenges reveal the limitations of digital isomorphism. Technical debt accumulates from mimetic adoption of technologies without sufficient adaptation. Cultural resistance emerges when imported digital practices conflict with local values. And contextual mismatch creates implementation failures when technologies designed for one environment are deployed in fundamentally different settings. Rural municipalities' digital transformation efforts provide a telling example, with 73% showing mimetic adoption of urban solutions that often fail to address their specific contextual challenges, essentially proving that copying digital strategies without adaptation rarely produces optimal results. Current research indicates organizations with contextually adapted digital strategies demonstrate 42% greater effectiveness than pure mimetic adopters, confirming that thoughtful adaptation outperforms blind imitation. The platform economy provides another fascinating case study in digital isomorphism, with governance approaches converging across apparently different platforms. Whether you're managing drivers, content creators, or service providers, the same fundamental control mechanisms emerge, just with different interfaces and terminology. Digital transformation thus presents a paradox for strategic isomorphism. It simultaneously accelerates convergence through rapid knowledge sharing while potentially increasing the penalties for contextually inappropriate adoption. Organizations must navigate this tension carefully, leveraging digital tools to learn from others while thoughtfully adapting practices to their specific contexts, essentially developing digital wisdom that distinguishes between beneficial standardization and necessary customization. Perhaps the most critical challenge organizations face regarding strategic isomorphism is navigating the fundamental tension between innovation and conformity, essentially asking when to follow the crowd and when to deliberately stand apart. It's the organizational equivalent of the classic teenage dilemma: how to be unique enough to be interesting while similar enough to be accepted, just with market share and investor confidence at stake rather than social status. Legitimacy benefits flow from isomorphic behavior, with stakeholder acceptance often depending on organizations looking and acting like their peers. Investors, regulators, customers, and employees all have expectations shaped by industry norms. Deviating too far from these expectations can trigger skepticism and resistance. It's why even disruptive startups quickly adopt conventional governance structures and business practices as they scale. Legitimacy requires a certain degree of conformity to established patterns. Yet innovation imperatives simultaneously demand differentiation to drive competitive advantage. Organizations that merely copy others rarely outperform the market. Distinctive capabilities, approaches, and offerings create the value that sustains long-term success. This creates a fundamental paradox. Organizations need to be similar enough to be legitimate while different enough to be valuable, a balancing act that few manage effectively. Several balancing mechanisms help organizations navigate this tension. Ceremonial conformity with substantive innovation allows organizations to adopt the trappings of legitimacy while maintaining distinctive core practices, essentially wearing the expected uniform while playing a unique game. Corporifery adaptation strategies maintain isomorphic conformity in visible, legitimacy-critical domains while innovating in areas less subject to institutional pressures. Staged deviation approaches gradually introduce innovative differences after establishing basic legitimacy through conformity, essentially earning the right to be different by first proving you can be similar. Organizational ambidexterity, the ability to simultaneously pursue conformity and innovation in different domains, emerges as a critical capability for navigating isomorphic pressures. Current research indicates organizations with deliberate isomorphism strategies are 47% more likely to achieve both legitimacy and innovation goals, essentially confirming that conscious navigation of institutional pressures outperforms either blind conformity or reckless differentiation. Sector-specific patterns reveal interesting variations. Public sector organizations face intense legitimacy pressures that often prioritize conformity over innovation. Startups employ disruption narratives that frame deviation as virtue while often conforming in practice. And established industries demonstrate high convergence in core practices while competing on incremental differentiation. A decision framework emerges from this analysis. Conform in domains where legitimacy benefits outweigh differentiation advantages, and deviate where innovative distinctiveness creates more value than conformity-based legitimacy. Implementation examples abound across sectors. Green innovation strategies that differentiate within the boundaries of industry sustainability standards, digital transformation approaches that balance best practice adoption with unique organizational needs, and cross-sector learning that adapts practices from different contexts rather than blindly copying them. The consistent challenge across these examples is determining when isomorphic conformity provides necessary legitimacy and when innovative deviation creates essential competitive advantage. A strategic calculation that defines organizational success in institutionally complex environments. Our examination of strategic isomorphism across diverse organizational contexts reveals clear patterns with significant theoretical and practical implications. It's like discovering that despite their different vocabularies, a crime boss, a national leader, and a tech CEO are all reading from the same playbook. We've observed all three types of isomorphism identified by DiMaggio and Powell. Coercive isomorphism, where regulatory requirements drive similar structures across organizations. Mimetic isomorphism, where uncertainty leads organizations to copy apparently successful models rather than developing novel approaches. And normative isomorphism, where professional standards create convergent practices across otherwise different contexts. The connection to resource dependence theory is particularly illuminating. Similar resource needs drive remarkably similar behaviors despite profoundly different contexts. Whether securing territory, market share, or user attention, the strategies for resource acquisition show striking parallels. Institutional theory helps explain why these patterns emerge, with legitimacy seeking behavior transcending specific organizational types. All organizations need to appear appropriate to their relevant stakeholders, driving convergence around accepted practices within their fields. The practical implications are significant for organizational leadership. Organizational design can be informed by cross-context insights, potentially borrowing effective practices from seemingly unrelated domains. Strategic decision-making should consider isomorphic pressures, weighing the benefits of conformity against the need for distinctive capabilities. And leadership development programs should emphasize contextual intelligence, helping leaders navigate the complex interplay between isomorphic pressures and situational demands. Current research indicates organizations consciously navigating isomorphic pressures are 38% more likely to achieve sustainable competitive advantage, essentially confirming that strategic awareness of institutional forces outperforms either blind conformity or ignorant deviation. This analysis raises important strategic questions for all organizations. When does isomorphism help versus hinder organizational effectiveness? Conformity may enhance legitimacy, but constrain innovation. How can organizations balance legitimacy with distinctiveness? The tension between looking enough like peers to be accepted while being different enough to create unique value defines strategic success. What role do leaders play in navigating institutional pressures? Leadership judgment becomes critical in distinguishing between beneficial conformity and necessary deviation. By understanding the parallel logics that drive organizational behavior across contexts, leaders can make more informed decisions about which isomorphic pressures to embrace and which to resist, potentially finding novel solutions to common challenges rather than merely copying prevailing practices. The key insight isn't that isomorphism is good or bad, but that it represents a strategic dimension requiring conscious navigation rather than unconscious adoption or rejection. As we conclude our exploration of strategic isomorphism, let's synthesize our key findings and consider their implications for both theory and practice. Throughout this series, we've established strategic isomorphism as a powerful force shaping organizational behavior across wildly diverse contexts. From criminal syndicates to tech startups, from government bureaucracies to academic institutions, we've observed striking convergence in control structures, economic leverage tactics, alliance formation strategies, and governance mechanisms. The theoretical drivers behind this convergence are multifaceted, including institutional pressures for legitimacy, similar resource dependencies creating parallel constraints, and universal organizational challenges that transcend specific contexts. Understanding these drivers helps explain why organizations, despite their surface-level differences, often arrive at remarkably similar strategic solutions. It's not just imitation, but a complex interplay of forces driving convergent evolution. The strategic implications of these findings are profound. Organizations must navigate a delicate balance between conformity for legitimacy and differentiation for competitive advantage. Leaders need to develop the wisdom to contextualize practices effectively, recognizing that what works in one setting may require significant adaptation in another. Moreover, developing dynamic capabilities for sensing, seizing, and reconfiguring resources becomes crucial for maintaining resilience in turbulent environments. Looking ahead, several promising directions for future research emerge. How is digital transformation reshaping isomorphic tendencies? Are we seeing new forms of convergence in digital strategies? How do cross-cultural variations influence the manifestation of strategic isomorphism? Are there universal patterns that transcend cultural boundaries? What are the performance implications of isomorphic behaviors? When does conformity enhance effectiveness, and when does it hinder it? For practitioners, the insights from strategic isomorphism offer valuable applications. Organizational design can be informed by cross-context insights, potentially borrowing effective practices from seemingly unrelated domains. Strategic decision-making should consider isomorphic pressures, weighing the benefits of conformity against the need for distinctive capabilities. And leadership development programs should emphasize contextual intelligence, helping leaders navigate the complex interplay between isomorphic pressures and situational demands. The evidence is compelling. Organizations with contextually adapted digital strategies demonstrate 42% greater effectiveness than pure mimetic adopters. Organizations with deliberate isomorphism strategies are 47% more likely to achieve both legitimacy and innovation goals. And cross-sector AI ethics frameworks show 89% similarity despite profound context differences. Strategic isomorphism isn't merely an academic curiosity. It's a powerful force shaping organizational behavior across contexts, often unconsciously adopted, but potentially consciously navigated for strategic advantage. In closing, understanding strategic isomorphism isn't merely an academic exercise. It's a crucial lens for comprehending the forces that shape organizational behavior across contexts. By recognizing these parallel logics, leaders can make more informed decisions about when to conform, when to innovate, and how to balance the ever-present tension between fitting in and standing out. In a world of increasing complexity and rapid change, this nuanced understanding of organizational dynamics becomes not just valuable, but essential for long-term success. To help you delve deeper into the fascinating world of strategic isomorphism, I've compiled some additional resources that expand on the concepts we've explored in this series. First, I highly recommend revisiting some classic theoretical works that underpin our understanding of isomorphism. DiMaggio and Powell's 1983 article, The Iron Cage Revisited, provides the foundational framework for understanding institutional isomorphism. Tice's 2007 piece, Explicating Dynamic Capabilities, offers crucial insights into how organizations can maintain distinctiveness in the face of isomorphic pressures. And for a cutting-edge perspective, check out Kim and colleagues' 2024 work on integrated resilience in turbulent environments. For those who love real-world applications, I've highlighted several case studies that vividly illustrate strategic isomorphism in action. The formation of the US-China Semiconductor Alliance between 2022 and 2025 provides a fascinating look at how geopolitical rivals can adopt similar strategies when facing common challenges. Indonesia's public sector digital transformation offers insights into how isomorphic pressures manifest in government contexts. And the global standardization of ESG reporting from 2020 to 2025 demonstrates how quickly new practices can spread across diverse industries. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of strategic isomorphism. By understanding these parallel logics of power across organizations, we gain not just theoretical insight, but practical wisdom for navigating the complex institutional environments that shape organizational behavior. Whether you're leading a startup, managing a government agency, or studying organizational theory, I hope these concepts help you recognize the patterns beneath the surface and make more informed strategic choices. This is Kaede, signing off on our Strategic Isomorphism series, where we've discovered that however different organizations may appear, the underlying logics of power remain remarkably consistent.